And we are back from break. I'm David Boles. This is Boles.tv, BOLES.TV. Wonderful to be here with you today. We are on Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. Eastern. And oh boy, we just finished a long chat about murderers and abusers and all kinds of strange defenders of those who rape and beat women and other people in relationship to the William Hurt death. It's bizarre how people have their defenders, no matter how awful and terrible you are. You can see examples in public life: Woody Allen, Roman Polanski. Why they are defended, I don't know. But it very smoothly brings us into our next topic. And our topic is this: that abused children eventually, thankfully, become empaths as adults. Now, what does all of that mean? Well, it's an interesting topic. And if you have direct experience, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about before I even start talking about it. But abused children, in the sense of not always physical, more than likely emotional and mental abuse in the context that we are forming together today here on Boles.tv. And specifically, I'm talking about narcissistic parents. Mothers, fathers, and the community of survivors calls them narcs. And the hallmark of a narcissistic parent is that they are always right. The world revolves around them. The children are accoutrements to their living. Children are there to serve and to be shown off and to behave. They're not necessarily there to learn and grow and enhance their lives. Many narcissistic parents think that their children are a burden to them, and that they don't necessarily want them, or they don't want to be involved with their lives. And if anything goes wrong, it's the fault of the child and not the parent. Now, my philosophy has always been, if you have kids, the kids are the center of your universe, and you give up your life for your children. Like it or not, they run the house because they have to. It's part of growing up and part of learning where boundaries are. And even if you have the most well-behaved kid, they're going to test boundaries. And that's what I mean, they run the house, because you have to defend boundaries that you believe are important. Mothers have to give over the sexual tension of the house to their young daughters eventually, and some mothers refuse to do that. They remain in competition with their daughters throughout the rest of their lives. Some fathers believe that the only true man is a strong man, who doesn't back down and who fights with his fists and not always with his heart and his mind. Now, if you were raised in a loving home where you were the golden child, or you were raised by parents who expressed their love and who comforted you and who made you whole, you will probably not have any idea what I'm talking about. You won't have any relationship ratio to compare this to. And that's okay. You've had a wonderful life. You're very fortunate. You've lived well. And I'm sure that your parents and your kids and your parents and your grandparents are all better for it. However, there are some among us who have not been so fortunate. They were raised in abusive homes. And I'm not talking about, burning with cigarettes and branding irons. I'm talking about intellectual, emotional abuse. Yelling, screaming, blaming. And what that does to a young child is it puts them on the defensive. It makes them hypersensitive. And I'm sure you've met people in your life, either as young kids growing up or even in adulthood, that if you say something, something happens, and the other person gets a little scared and says, "Are you mad at me? What did I do? What's wrong?" And some people get really irritated by that kind of question. But where is it coming from? Well, that's what we're going to find out. That's what we're going to discuss. When you are an abused child by a narcissistic parent, you very quickly learn how to read a person. You know how to read a room. You get a sense immediately, is mother mad? Is dad drinking again? And then in your mind, you find ways to cope and associate and move around and find ways to protect yourself. And those are survival methods. And kids are very tough. And sometimes they rely on themselves, they rely on their friends, they rely on outside family who come to their rescue. But often it doesn't help that way because the facade of the family is what's most important to narcissistic parents. And to go outside of that and to break the seal, to burst the bubble of being the perfect family, is not allowed. And the children, those abused children, quickly learn that you always say, "Yes, ma'am," and "Thank you," and "No, sir," and "Of course, sir," if you don't want to have a rotten day and get yelled at or hit or punished. You don't argue with narcissists because they don't care. All you can do in order to survive a narcissist is to agree with them, even if you don't. I'm reminded of the story of the young child riding in a car with her mother, and she's standing up sitting together, and the young girl is standing on her car seat, and they're going on the highway. And the mother says, "Sit down. It's not safe for you. Sit down. Put your seatbelt on." And finally, after a time, the young girl complies, puts on her seatbelt, and looks at her mother and said, "In my mind, I'm still standing up." And I love that story because it's very brilliant and rebellious and also solves a problem and shows the power of the mind. Well, that's what narcissistic parents' kids have to do every day. Okay, yes, ma'am, no, ma'am. In my mind, I'm going the other way. But I have to tell you what you want to hear, because if I don't agree with you, as a narcissist, I'm going to be in trouble as a kid. You're going to make my life miserable. And really, the only way, ultimately, out of that misery is to escape. You plan your escape. And that's what it is. You run away. You find a boyfriend, you find a girlfriend, you have a little bit of extra money, you have an aunt or an uncle who helps, a cousin, and you pick up your things and you run away and you live somewhere else. And you don't tell that person where you're going. You don't tell your narcissistic parents what's going on in your life. You gray rock them, which means when they ask you all their questions, which are all about control, you just give non-committal answers. You gray rock them. And they don't like it because they know you're gray rocking them. But that's what you have to do. And some just go 100% no contact. They have no contact once they escape from their narcissistic parents. Because the narcs will never be healed. Because if you heal from being a narc, that means you have a problem. And narcissists do not believe that they have problems. They are infallible and they are perfect people. So how can you have a conversation with them? You can't. How can you heal in therapy? You can't, because they will not be a part of the process. Now, you can do your best to heal yourself through therapy or talking with people or just by escaping and having to deal with it again. And then you're going to meet these other people that I talked about earlier who had perfect lives. And I say, "Oh, but that's your mother. Oh, that's your dad. You can't cut them off." And again, another form of abuse for the abused child in your mind. "Oh yeah, okay, I'll call my mom tonight." In my mind, I'm never speaking to her again. And of course, the narcs have no idea what you're talking about. That never happened. I don't know why he won't speak to me. I don't know what's going on with my daughter. I don't know why she doesn't respond to my texts. I have no idea. I was the perfect parent. So these young kids learn very quickly to figure out how to deal with these personalities in order just to survive into the next day. And sometimes there's lying, sometimes there's manipulation that the kids do on their own in their mind in order to survive. And these kids meet, as I said, these deniers. Well, it can't be possible that she would say that to you because she's your mother. Your mother loves you. And you just shrug your shoulders. And you can, if you say anything, oh no, oh, then they come after you. Oh. And then you become an adult. So the abused child becomes an adult and, by default, an empath. Now, what's an empath? Empath is short for empathic. Now, you may think of Star Wars and the Troy character who reads minds and I know what's going on because I'm an empath. It's sort of like that. But as an adult, you quickly learn to read people because you had to as a kid to survive. So you look for subtle clues in voice tone, in the way eyes move around the room of the people that you are observing. Are they in a good mood? Are they having a bad day? Are they going to take it out on me? You become an empath with everyone you meet. You've met all the masks before, and you, as an abused child, a survivor of a narcissistic parent, have the ability to see through the mask. You know the people you are dealing with. And they may not know that about you. They may think they fooled you because that's what people do every day in their life. So sometimes you're in school or in a workplace or in a meeting with a group of people and someone leading the group comes in and you, as a survivor, as an adult empath, say, oh boy, this is going to be a bad meeting. And if you happen to say that, there are going to be other people who are clueless in the room with you. What are you talking about? He's in a good mood. He smiled. And you're thinking, oh, if they only knew what's coming. I know what's going to happen before it happens. And the best part is, if you're in like a group of 10 to 15 people, there are going to be people who say, oh, what are you talking about? Oh, I didn't see that. I don't know what's wrong with you. That's not happening. I don't see that whatsoever. Those are people who were not abused as children. They don't have the ability to be an empath because they didn't suffer as a child. Now, they can be empathetic, but they're not an empath. And empath adults recognize other empaths. As Howard Stein, my friend and mentor, taught me at Columbia University in the city of New York, talent recognizes talent. And the same is true for empaths as adults. Adult empaths recognize each other. So you're in a room and someone makes a comment, oh boy, we're in trouble. And other people are saying, what are you talking about? This is going to be a great meeting. And then across the table, across the room, one person, two person will look at you and just go like that. They know because they're just like you. They were abused by narcissists growing up. They learned how to read the room. They learned how to cope. They learned all the different kind of personalities, traits, and traps. And now as adults, they too are undercover empaths. And they know. And then you have a connection. You know, the break, lunch, later, walking back to the car, they come up to you and say, yes, and this, and this, and this, and this, and all the things that maybe you didn't notice because of your experiences, they noticed because of their experiences. And then you put it all together. And of course, you're right. Because what the other people in the room didn't know is that in 20 minutes, they're going to be clubbed over the head by this person who they thought was in a great mood. But you saw something coming, and so did 2 and 3 other people in the room at the same time. Because they too had the same experience of growing up in a narcissistic family. And this panic is real. There are alarm buttons. And some people never recover. They're always on edge. They are always panicking. Are you mad at me? What have I done? How can I do better? You've met those people. They are terrified of upsetting you. They are terrified of people being mad at them. And that's how other people, empaths or not, control them. And usually they're other narcissists that they meet in adult lives. And unfortunately, those people who are not in control of their panic tend to hook up and connect with narcissists because they're familiar with them. They grew up with them. The narcissist appreciates the questioning and the adoration. Are you mad at me? What can I do? And then the circle continues, and the circle is closed. The abused child by narcissistic parents grows up to be an empath as an adult, and without some sort of emotional, intellectual intervention, they close their own circle by marrying their mother or their father, their narcissistic mother or father. And that is the stuff of tragedies. That is the stuff of great works of drama that are founded in the real relationships and the sorrowful endings of how people begin and end their lives. So if you happen to not be an adult empath, and you're in a meeting with someone, and they're noticing things going on that don't occur to you, don't dismiss them. Don't brush them off. Don't put them down. Just ask them a question. What are you seeing? What's going to happen? What's really going on? And the answers you get will surprise you. And now, my friend, one more brief blood pressure break. I'll be back in a minute.